Okay, for these very last problems, we need to kind of talk about something first. Remember back at the very beginning of this section where I said there were going to be 4 things you'd have to know and remember. The first one was that I is the square root of -1. The second was that I squared is -1. We also need to know what I cubed and I to the 4th are. Once we know what those 4 things, what these 4 things represent, then we can simplify powers of I. Okay, in order to find out what I cubed is, if we know that I equals the square root of -1, then if we were to cube both sides, this would be I cubed equals. Now, if you'll remember, whenever we were working with our square roots, if we had, say, the square root of x cubed, we would say 2 goes into 3 one whole time. So we would pull out an x, and it would have 1 left over. So we would leave an x underneath. Same exact thing with this. 2 goes into 3 one whole time, so that would be a -1, with 1 left over under the radical. Now, -1 we could just say is negative, and the square root of -1 by definition is I. So technically I cubed is -I. Okay? Now, we have to figure out what I to the 4th is. What if we knew that I squared is -1, and I wanted to find out what I to the 4th is? I would really have to square the I squared, wouldn't I? Because that would make I to the 4th. Well, I can do that as long as we square both sides. So -1 squared is a +1. So that means that I to the 4th is +1. This is what we have to know and remember in order to simplify these powers of I. We have to figure out how many I to the 4ths are in here, because every one of those is going to be a 1. So for instance, if I could break this down into I to the 4th times I to the 4th times I to the 4th times I to the 4th, so on and so forth. Well, actually, I could do that 8 times, because I to the 4th raised to the 8th, that would be I to the 32nd. I'd still have 2 more left over. So it'd be like saying I to the 4th to the 8th, so that's I to the 32nd, and then 2 more of the i's would make 34. Well, every one of these I to the 4ths is going to be a 1. And 1 to any power is 1. That's why we try to break down and see how many I to the 4ths are inside here, because every one of those is going to be a 1. It won't matter. So now we're just looking at I squared. Well, by definition, I squared is -1. So our answer here, I to the 34th, is equivalent to -1. Let's try another one. Here we have I to the 101. Well, again, we really need to figure out how many I to the 4ths there are in 101. There are actually 25 of those I to the 4ths, with 1 I left over. Because I to the 4th to the 25th, power to power you multiply, so that would be I to the 100th, plus another one would be 101. Every one of these is going to be a 1. So all we're left with here is just an I. So I to the 101st power is equivalent to I. That's how that works.